Greetings, humans.
Welcome to another episode of Humans of the Multiverse, where we share the stories of our friends from all over the globe.
We hope you find this conversation interesting and uplifting. Our goal is to bring people together, so if you enjoy the interview, we'd love to hear your comments.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Greetings, humans. This is Dave.
And I'm Mike, and today we're very pleased to introduce our friend, Laura. Laura McCaltzes is a visionary entrepreneur who seamlessly transitioned from a successful career as a fashion model to a pioneering force in the industry. And she is also an innovative educator who uses digital art to teach English as a second language. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Hi.
Yay, we're glad you're here today. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we like I said, this is our Humans of the Multiverse show. And the first thing we like to ask people is, who are you? Where do you come from? And, how'd life get started on this planet for Laura, Alien Princess?
Well, I'm an alien come to Earth, obviously, to
Nice.
study the human race. But I grew up in Toronto. I've been in Toronto pretty much my whole life. I like to travel a lot. So I had a very interesting journey throughout my schooling career, and that's led me to do all of the things that I am doing now. So I had very low self-confidence when I was a lot younger. So I found empowerment through the modeling, which Mike mentioned. And I am a neurodivergent, dyslexic, gifted individual. So school was really tough for me for many years before I had the label and understood how to navigate it. So I started teaching ESL, and I found there were a lot of similar things between neurodivergent learning disabilities and learning a new language. So I'm able to help people of all walks of life learn English in a fun way with games and digital art and really cool stuff instead of looking at a textbook.
Very cool, very cool. And so growing up in Toronto, that makes you you're Canadian citizen?
Yeah, yes, Canadian.
Awesome, me too. So I'm a dual citizen of Canada and the US, though.
Oh, you're so lucky. That's one of my goals. I have to find an American to marry.
Yeah, maybe this... should we put out an ad right now or no?
Yeah, just advertise Alien Princess looking for American citizen.
Love it. And so I wanted to touch a bit on the neurodivergent thing. Like, when did you first feel like you were having issues in school and didn't know what was going on, or what'd that look like?
I think I always knew. I was in French immersion in my first couple years of school, and I don't think I retained anything because I just couldn't read the French. It was just really, really hard to read everything. And then they put me back in the English program, but I was still behind. And I don't know, I just sort of accepted that I was bad at certain things. And teachers told me, you are bad at this, you are bad at that. And they gave me things to focus on. They're like, oh, you're really good at art, so focus on your art. Or you're really good at drama, focus on that. Maybe writing and English is not for you. Maybe math is too hard because the word puzzles were just not registering. And then my parents decided to get me tested for a learning disability, and I came back as learning disabled and gifted. So it was a very tough combo. There is no program for anyone who is both those things, and I think most people are both those things in some capacity.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. Neurodivergent or learning disabled and gifted, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's me too without a diagnosis.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
A lot of my students are either there's some form of neurodivergent, whether they're gifted or learning disabled. I think almost all of my students come with some sort of IEP, and the parent is like, here, it says on your profile and website that you can do this, you can help people like this because you are also like this. So it's very nice to be able to help people through that.
Cool.
Yeah. Were there any classmates that you had or other students that you could kind of rely on to get by in class when there wasn't anything made specifically for that?
I had one friend who fell in the same category, and we would pretty much split up things. So if we got a book report, she would read the book and tell me about the book. I would tell her what theses we were going to do about this book. She would write the first draft. I would give her feedback. She'd write the second draft for us. And then I'd do any arts or media that had to go with it. And we'd hand in 2 separate projects, but we both worked on both. So that's how we got through it. I guess it's technically cheating, but we called it teamwork.
That's collaborating. That was a
Yeah,
really good way to
collaborating.
adapt.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
Exactly.
cheating at all. It reminds me of when I was in the army and I was like terrible at like I didn't have any I was not a very organized person, but I was strong and I had a lot of endurance. And my battle buddy, he was the opposite. And so he helped me stay organized. He helped me stay on task all the time.
Yep.
And I helped him with a lot of the physical stuff. And so I think that's a cool way to, get through what must have been a difficult time. Do you still keep in touch with that person?
Yeah, she is still my best friend. Her name is Julia. She might watch this. Hello, Julia.
Hello, Julia. Very cool.
Awesome.
Very cool. And so that led you, like, when did you how old were you when you got that diagnosis?
I was young. I was in elementary school, so somewhere between probably grades 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, so without trying to give away your age too much, like unless you want to share.
I'm 27. It's okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
My mom just says never ask a woman what her age is for some reason. Maybe that's like her generation thing. I don't know. But so we're talking about 20 years ago, little less than 20 years ago. What was the the special education programs like available then versus now?
They haven't changed much, shockingly. So I went to a gifted designation program shortly after getting the diagnosis, but there was no support for the learning disability at all, like nothing in that program. So it was just, I just didn't do well. And then I went to a regular school with some special ed help for the learning disability, but I was so bored. And then I went to an art school, and I really liked the art school because everything was taught through arts integration. I did that for middle school and a little bit through high school. And I think that was a better place for me because art, there's no right or wrong. It's all about expression and conceptualization and just higher level thinking. It's not about whether or not you can type a grammatically correct sentence. So it was definitely a better fit. But I think it still didn't push me as far as I could have gone in terms of academics or even in terms of art. I think there's still more I could have done there. But yeah, just nothing existed. It just doesn't exist.
And still doesn't really.
Yeah. I think I have some even students who are like native English speakers who are just gifted, like learning disabled, who come to the classes to learn English just because it's a program that works for them.
Okay. And then besides having a battle buddy, that's what we called it in the Army, was there any other strategies or things that like, ways that helped you learn that were unique?
I think I taught myself a lot of things. Like when I was like in grades 6 and 7, I really wanted to be a photographer. So SLR cameras were really, really expensive then. They're like a couple $1,000s, like $5,000 or something. And my parents were like, we can't just buy you this really expensive thing for this child. This is like, we can't just do that. So I started a business making toys out of socks to sell so that I could buy the camera. And then I bought the camera and started a little photography business in high school. So that was fun. I think I learned a lot more doing that than I did other things. So just finding interesting things to do outside of school was kind of my path.
What kind of toys did you make out of socks?
I made sock monkeys and sock monsters. My name was the Sock Monkey Kid for a little while. It was super cute. I didn't make like just generic toys. I gave them all like personalities and stories and fun stuff about them. I think almost everyone in school had one.
You could do a puppet show with you and your friends and all the different sock characters.
Exactly.
I could even envision a children's book out of that someday.
I did make one, yeah. I did have one. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So where did you sell the like to people at school, or did you have an online store or what?
Just people at school. I think everyone bought at least one. Parents bought them. I did craft fairs, trade shows. It was fun. It was really fun.
And who called you the sock monkey girl? Like everyone at school or what?
Yeah, everybody at school.
That's actually a pretty sweet nickname.
Yeah, it was cute. It was very cute.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It shows that even from a young age, you were determined to have your own business and have your own thing and be creative in what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Always.
Yeah, and so that kind of drove you. That's sort of the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. What
Yeah.
happened after high school?
After high school, I went to university. I was quite sick throughout university, so I didn't. Don't think I really got the full like university experience. But I found I developed a very good understanding of like the value of time, and time in which you are healthy is more valuable than time in which you are not. So when I was in school, I was like, wow, I never want to work for anyone like ever again. Like I worked a coffee shop job in high school and I was like, nah, like this is just not how I'm gonna live my life. I don't want to build someone else's dream with the finite amount of time I have. So decided to just do other things.
Time. Can you say that again? Time. That about time.
Yeah, time when you're healthy is much more valuable than time when you are sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Especially like when as you get older, you know, people in their 20s normally don't figure that out. People
No,
usually figure that out by the time they're 60. They're like,
I
oh
had it figured
shoot.
out at like 18. I was like, "Oh, this is okay. This is how it is when you are not well." Um, but yeah,
I
I
feel
think
like if I'm ever feeling ill or recovering from an illness, it's all about, oh, I just got to get back to being healthy, back
yeah,
to normal, and then I'm going to do all these wonderful things. And then if you've been haven't been sick for a while, and that's when you might notice you're being a little bit lazy.
maybe, yeah. It's
Yep.
definitely hard when you go to a doctor and you're like, "Oh, what's wrong with me?" And they're like, "Well, you're actually never gonna get better. This is only gonna get worse." And the medical system fails you, and you have to pick yourself up and figure out what to do with the hand you're dealt. And I'm a totally functioning person now. I feel good, healthy every day. So yeah, it's tough
Right.
for sure.
Did you get back on track with lifestyle and that
Yeah,
kind of thing?
lifestyle stuff. So I just cut out red meat entirely. Very very small amounts of sugar. Um, I'm like very in tune with my body. Like I can tell when I'm about to not feel well, and I just drink a ton of water. Turmeric is a really really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody is in pain and wants to take turmeric, you will feel better.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. Yeah. And so you got like a learning disability and then or like label and then you've got this health label.
Yeah.
How do you feel about labels in general?
Oh, labels just let me down. Like it's kind of nice because you get a label and you can kind of blame that label. You're like, oh, I am like this because, and I find people use labels a lot as excuses, like, oh, I don't have a job because this label. Oh, I can't do this because of this label. But actually, the reality is that you decide what you can and cannot do, and it doesn't matter what the label is. You just have to find another way to do it, even if it's not the conventional path, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what me and Dave are trying to do with these interviews, is to share
Yeah,
our healthy time with other healthy people, help bring people up and inspire them to do like exactly how you're doing.
yeah, it's good. I like it.
Yeah, and we're enjoying this journey and meeting new people like you. Like we never would have got to talk to somebody like you, who's sending something to the moon, which we'll get
Yeah,
to in a second. Um, which I was really excited to hear about.
so
Um,
excited.
So
so
we made it
you,
through university.
yeah,
Yeah.
But
And then because I wasn't well, I thought I had to do something online. And I thought that that was the only way I was going to be able to like work for myself and make money. So I just Googled jobs that you can do on the computer that are in high demand. And I got a list of like 10, and the first one was English teacher. And I was like, okay, we'll start at the top of the list. And we'll just go down the list until one of these things works. And thankfully, I didn't need the list. So I just did English teacher. A lot of like pushback from people who knew me. They were like, "How can a dyslexic person teach English?" And I was like, "Well, we're gonna see what happens. You know, challenge accepted. Let's see how it goes." And it ended up working out really well.
yeah, that's the most important thing. You need an English teacher that's dyslexic to teach all the dyslexic folks how to the
Yeah,
same team effort that you and your friend
yeah,
had together. Now you can do that for kids. They don't have to try to
yeah,
find that teammate.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. And they have fun. They make it fun.
yeah, that's really interesting. Like it's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like telling somebody. I don't know. I just don't like people telling you that you can't do that, or like I can't believe you're doing that, or you were saying before like you're bad at this. Do you have like a different way of like telling kids, like, how do you have that? Like, I imagine you don't tell your students, "Hey, you're bad at this."
Never. So I do have I have a lot of students who happen to have like dyslexia and reading disabilities, and they're often like, "Oh, my teacher at school says I can't do this because I am dyslexic." I'm like, "Well, no, actually, like, there's a lot of really cool things that come from being dyslexic. Like, yes, you maybe struggle with words and putting like sentences together, but if you understand pattern recognition, which you probably will if you're dyslexic, you probably actually see it at a much higher level than everyone else. You just have to learn the patterns that are in the English language instead of learning grammatical sentence structure. You just break it down in a different way, and you will probably actually learn faster than everybody else in English because there's other ways to look at it. So like instead of looking at like let's say the letter blends for phonics, instead of looking at them like individually and just being like, okay, memorize this, memorize that, memorize this, and now you know all these words because you've memorized that. What are the patterns that are being used to do these three things, and actually reverse engineer it so they discover the patterns themselves?
I think that's really interesting because when it comes to communicating effectively, it really doesn't matter what's going on inside your head so long as the product comes out and other people are able to understand it. So
Exactly.
who's to say you have to learn grammar a certain way?
Yeah, I actually lost marks in my math class because I had a faster way of doing long division. They were like, you didn't show your work properly, but I got the right answer, so should be fine, right?
In the real world, you would have got extra points for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, after college, what did you do then?
Well, the world pretty much shut down. So
Yeah.
I decided to move out of my parents' house. I got a condo at a very nice COVID dip price. And then I went to New York for a substantial period of time, which solely was just because I could during the middle of the pandemic, and they had a lot more access to the vaccines and everything there. And as someone who was like immune compromised, getting that was important, and I could get it in like 3 days there, or I could wait like potentially a year in Canada to get it. So I spent a lot of time in New York in a very unique period. I still love New York. It's one of my favorite places. And I did a lot of like modeling there, especially because COVID was like taken care of a lot faster there than it was in Toronto. So things were open, things were open safely. So that was really cool to get to do that. And then I eventually came back, and the modeling thing had been really fun. I'd been doing it since I was in high school. And I found particularly during COVID that people were getting very like social media driven. And I thought of a way to bring like diversity and inclusion to the industry by like hosting events to help people learn modeling, help people learn about like safety in the industry and all of that. So that was fun. I did that after I graduated. I still do it today as well.
And how did you get into modeling in high school?
Well, I thought I was gonna be an actor, so I did a whole bunch of like kids reality shows like YTV and Nickelodeon, and
Really cool.
I learned I'm a really really bad actor, like so bad. And instead of just learning how to do it properly, or like taking a class, or like trying to expand, someone who was looking for models kind of picked me up, and I found that there was more money in that, more interesting creative jobs in that too. Like you get to kind of be characters, and so I just started doing that more, and it was a unique and fun way to make a little bit of side money.
Okay. For Americans watching, YTV is Canadian Nickelodeon,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah,
Also,
you're welcome.
it's a COVID-friendly profession because you can stay 6 feet apart between
Yeah,
the photographer.
exactly. Yeah, and I had a mortgage to pay, and was like, okay, well, this is we're gonna go hard at this for a little bit and see how it goes.
So you moved out before or after COVID?
During.
During.
I mean,
Wow.
did two big moves. I moved into a condo, and then I had some friends who had moved to New York like permanently, and they were like, hey, everything's open here. If you're worried about your mortgage, maybe you should come here and make some money, because like I didn't really qualify for CERB, so I decided to just hop the border and have a good time. It was really, really cool. New York, like Times Square with no one in it, was wild.
Yeah, I can imagine. I remember seeing it on TV and thinking that must be an eerie feeling in real time.
It was so great. I actually thought I really liked Times Square, and I went back recently and was like, "Oh, this is not what I thought it was. This is terrible. There's people everywhere. There's like
Everywhere.
sitting. It's so bad.
You wish you could be 6 feet away from a few of the characters that
Yeah, that's what
roam
I
around
wanted.
it.
I was like, where's the social distancing? You know, now you cough in Times Square, no one runs away from you. They all just over about it.
Yeah. Not to get into but it was interesting to me that the vaccines were available so quickly here versus there. I feel
Yeah.
like they would be coming from the same place.
It
I wonder
was
what
it was
wonder
very
what's going on
strange.
there.
Like I was on the list in Canada to get my second one, and they told me 6 months, and I was like, okay. I got on the plane, and as I'm getting off the plane at the airport, this woman is handing me a flyer, going like, "Here, you can get your vaccine at the airport. You can go and get dose 2 at this location if you want Moderna, this location if you want Pfizer. But in case you're in a rush, if you don't want to get it right now, here's a map of all the places in New York you can get it." And I was like, "Oh, well, you guys take care of business over here."
Yeah, from growing up in Canada and then spending my adult life in the US, I've experienced both medical systems, and there's pluses and minuses to both, you know. Whereas there's so much freedom here to do, to go whatever doctor you want to, whenever you want. There's so much freedom of choice. But then it's like, if you don't have insurance, you're screwed.
I didn't have insurance. I think that they really took COVID seriously. Like when I was coming over, I had to get the test, the travel COVID test to make sure you didn't have COVID. It cost me $150 in Canada. And when I was in New York, I was like ready to pay for it on the way home. And so I'm at the booth and I'm like, where do I tap my card for this? Where do I pay for it? And the person running the booth goes, "I'm sorry, miss, but we are in the middle of a global crisis. Do you really think we're going to charge you to protect your country?" And I was like, well, my country charged me to protect your country. So I assumed it would go both ways.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. I never knew that. That's interesting. I had some traveling planned during that time that like I literally quit my job for, and then like I quit my job on March 1st of 2020, and then the world shut down 2 weeks later. So I didn't really go anywhere for a few months. But it's cool that you got to go like experience New York City during that time, and also probably did a lot of personal growth during that time, I'm imagining.
Oh yeah,
too.
it was really fun. It was great. I think I learned a lot about like what I am like when I'm by myself, because I had moved out, but I hadn't really gone out and done anything. So that was sort of the first time I got to like be free to choose my own adventure and do anything I wanted. I wasn't traveling with anyone, so I was like, I can actually do anything I want to do, and no one is gonna give any input into what it is that we are doing. So that made me very happy.
That wasn't scary at all.
No, it was so freeing. It was great.
Yeah, I often wonder if there's people out there that have never experienced like what it's like to it's interesting how you said it, what I'm like when I'm by myself, right? Because I didn't, not until I was like late 20s or something, because I shared a room with my brothers, and then I was in the army, and like in the army, you're not even allowed to be by yourself most of the time. So I had no idea until all of a sudden I got my first apartment, and I was like, so quiet. I can do whatever I want.
Great feeling.
At first, it was a little lonely, but now it's my fave. Being by myself is my fave.
It's so good. I love it. Me and my cat is perfect. Yeah.
It's important to be able to clear your mind and focus on the things that really matter.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to do it.
I think so too.
Yeah, that's why I like early in the morning. This morning I was up about 5:30, and for like the first 2 hours, I just had to myself, and I really set good intentions for the day and stuff like that. So I think it's important to have that.
Yeah.
So
during your time in New York, were you still intending to become an English teacher or start some type of school, or was that on the back burner due to COVID?
I was doing it. I had started building it up during COVID. It was really, really easy to get into it because everybody wanted to learn something online. Everybody was kind of bored. So it was actually a very easy start. And because of the momentum that I built and the reputation I gained, I was able to continue it after COVID. So that was really good. I was a little worried the world would open up and that job would disappear, but it didn't.
Well, maybe that worked out well that everyone was looking online during 2020 and more people found your service. And now maybe it's self-propelled with folks that need that type of training for ESL.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that service and the training you provide?
Yeah, so I do ESL for both kids and adults. Most of my students are kids from ages about 5 to 10. And we do ESL through STEM and art integration. So they get to do drawings, they get to make pictures, they play games, they learn about science. My favorite unit right now, which might be a good segue into the moon piece, is the kids get to be astronauts and they get to go travel space. And they have to communicate with me, who is mission control, and do missions on the moon and missions on Mars, while learning these really, really big words that most kids don't know, like colonization or like resources and settlements, things that like a 6-year-old doesn't usually understand, but they get it because they want to build their city on the moon.
What kid doesn't?
Yeah, right? It's fun. I got one kid, she's got herself like an actual astronaut costume that she wears like a uniform to class every single day.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, that is cool. I would personally would have loved something like that. I'd probably love that right now, and I'm 43. So
yeah, it's fun. It's very fun. And then my adults are like corporate clients, so I teach them not just how to speak in English, but how to speak in English with the purpose of selling themselves or selling their products.
Okay. Is there a certain like country that like from that or people that you teach the most, like people from overseas?
Yeah, so Asia is a big one. That's where I initially started during COVID, and a lot of word of mouth still, thankfully to this day, continues to spread there. But I've got kids in Sweden, Colombia, Russia, Ukraine, all over the world. I have people everywhere right now, which is really cool. And I get to kind of see into their world a little bit, and they tell me about their lives too, which is really cool.
That is cool. That is cool. And so how does one get into that, but also become a social media influencer at the same
By
time?
accident.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I started doing the events for the fashion industry, I experienced a really intense episode of cyberbullying. And I made an artistic video that, like, I guess I would say combated it. It was just kind of a message to her to leave me alone. Her and her many, many friends who decided to harass me on the internet. Not naming any names or anything. It was just her comments basically in an artistic way, with the message of like, make art, not hate. And, don't let these people who do this kind of thing stop you from doing what you want to be doing. And it ended up on the news and everything. And then my social media just started to grow consistently. And I didn't really know exactly like what I was going to do with it. So I used it to push my diversity and inclusion fashion events. And then I started kind of, I guess, defining myself with it. So I used it for my art. I used it for influencer jobs. And I kind of became a public figure by accident because somebody was mean to me. So it worked out.
Well, let's thank them then.
Yeah, that's an amazing way you turn potentially an enemy into simply a stepping stone into something greater. That's amazing.
Yeah. Which I hope other people can learn from and do the same thing.
What is a diversity and inclusion fashion event?
So when I was doing my modeling in New York and in Toronto, I found that everybody looked like me, like tall, skinny, blonde, generally, relatively attractive person. And there wasn't a lot of other stories being told through fashion. And basically, when I was getting cyberbullied, I did a whole bunch of research on like what the reasons were for cyberbullying, particularly during COVID. Actually connected with a professor from the University of Toronto, and she was actually on the news segment with me, explaining that because we're all isolated right now, we're starting to believe these false things that have kind of always been there, in terms of media and what like beauty looks like. So I kind of felt that if we had more diversity in media, there might be less bullying in terms of like what people look like. So like having people of color, having people of diverse sizes and diverse genders, and diverse gender identities have the same representation as the tall, skinny, blonde girl would be a good thing for society. So it's events with creatives who are in support of that idea, who want to come out and create cool work to put on social media or to use for campaigns. We've had 37 events with different independent designers who use these diverse models in their campaigns, and the photographers' stories are told through those as well. So it's really cool. It's fun.
That does sound like fun. You do that in Toronto or in New York or both? Or?
Both. Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I've just noticed, generally speaking, the last few years, a lot more diversity in in media. But I'm like in a narrow media category.
Yeah.
But would you say that since you got into modeling in general, it's become more diverse and inclusive, or?
It has. I think the faces that you are seeing on screen are definitely getting more diverse. And it's increased as every year. There's still a lot more to go. But what I actually found was more interesting to see on my end, something that I maybe didn't pay as much attention to. A lot of the fashion shows that I went to, the photographers were primarily white men. And as this rise of model diversity has begun, so has actually the diversity in photographers. So I'm seeing a lot more photographers of color, female photographers, which is really great because they are the ones who are composing that story that's being told through fashion or through whatever subject they choose. So seeing more people using the medium to propel their diverse messages is really great too.
It surprises me that most of the photographers were men. I don't know why. That seems like a
Fashion,
surprise.
most of the designers are men too. They design clothes for the women.
Huh.
Yeah.
Just not
It
part
kind
of
of reminds me of how you were labeled and told, oh, you can't be an English teacher because of this label.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to throw out the labels, who's to say anyone that enjoys fashion should be able to design, participate,
Yeah.
photograph, all that?
Anyone can do anything. I mean, I've had some negative teachers for sure. I had one tell me that girls couldn't be gifted in science, girls couldn't do math, and I was like, well, that's great for me. But yeah, so I think
That's
it's anyone can do anything they want is the general take here.
Yeah, that's wild. It's amazing what like a teacher can say, either negative or positive, that can stick with you. I had this one teacher. I was probably being a little jerk. I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but I remember her telling me that you're never going to amount to anything, and that's the part that I kept in my head. It was probably followed by, if you keep behaving that way. But what I kept in my head was, you're never going to amount to anything. And I was literally thinking about that lady every time I accomplished something in my life.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but you interact with kids a lot, and so I know you can't always be perfect every day, but do you think about that, like the words you say and the impact you're going to have?
Yeah, I do. I'm very, very cautious with it. I think my main goal is to have my kids leave feeling like they can do it. If they don't learn anything in the class, but they leave feeling like they're excited to come back to the next class and that they are motivated to try and they think they'll get there, that is enough. Often the first class, that's all we do is it's just, you can do it. We will get there. I'm here to help you. Let's like build a good relationship together so that we feel comfortable making mistakes in class. We feel comfortable asking questions, and just make sure that everybody's in a safe environment.
That's cool. In my background as a mental health counselor, rapport building is super. It's the most important thing because, like you were, I think, similar to what you said, it facilitates being vulnerable. If somebody's trying to learn and they're having difficulty, it's a vulnerable situation for them.
Yeah.
So you're trying to create that rapport and that kind of safe environment where it's like, it's okay.
Yeah. You can make a mistake and it's not the end of the world. It's better to make the mistake here and we can fix it than somewhere else where it might be more vital.
Very cool. Very cool. And so with the influencer thing, is that like, how did Laura Alien Princess become a part of that?
Well, it kind of stemmed from one of my first modeling jobs. The photographer said I looked like an alien, and I kind of was offended by it. I made the name when I was like 13, and then she quickly corrected herself and was like, "No, but not like a scary alien, not like something from the X-Files, like some sort of pretty princess alien." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool. I can vibe with that." Yeah.
A quick about face there on the cover up. Good.
Yeah, Laura Alien Princess. And I guess you're right. That is a good segue into the art project.
Yeah.
one of the main reasons we wanted to talk to you is because you got some art accepted to go on a
Yeah.
SpaceX flight. What's going on
Going to
there?
the moon. So it's going in the first art gallery that is going to be on the moon. The little piece that's going up is a pyramid, and they have different panels with different artworks and different seeds, different poetry, different things that are Earth culture in these pyramids that are going to go to the moon. And my art is going to be in the first gallery that's going to be there. So I'm really excited about it. I was really surprised that it all came to fruition. It's going to go in a little life ship pyramid on the SpaceX rocket in the fall and land on the moon.
How did you hear about the contest, and how did I don't know, how did you enter? What was the process of entering?
So I got like ad targeted on Instagram, and it was just enter this contest and maybe your art will go to the moon. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll roll the dice on that. Like, let's try it. So I entered, and it was just like they did a popular vote. So the top 10 voted pieces got to go to the show in New York, and then they voted from there to decide which works were going to go up. And mine was one of them. So I'm very excited.
So you
That's
got to
awesome.
go to.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really cool. And we'll be watching out for the launch in the fall. Maybe we'll have a watch party when they launch the spaceship.
Yeah, we all should. It'll be fun.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're there, if you happen to be there, you can call us in live.
Yeah, I can live stream it for everybody. It'll be so fun. I'm so excited.
So you haven't made up your mind if you're going down there or having like a party at home, or?
We'll see. I want to go down there, but the way launches work, the launch window is usually quite big, and things like weather can change it very, very quickly. There's a million and one reasons why a launch could be delayed. So we'll see. I'm hoping to go down. I might make a spur of the moment, like day before decision, and just go, okay, the weather is good. I will take the next flight out to Florida. Let's go. And see it there.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to stay on top of that too, because potentially we're talking like 2 a.m. or something, whenever they decide to launch. Yeah, whenever the window's open.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to just give you an opportunity to tell us about this piece. What was the inspiration? I know it probably says that in the description, but tell us about this piece.
I'm not sure actually if my description on Instagram is as detailed as it actually is. So I have, I teach, I think I mentioned earlier, I teach the ESL classes where I have STEM integration with science that is about the moon, and you get to be an astronaut, and you get to go to space, and it's super fun. It's all done with like PowerPoint games that I've designed and crafted for them. And I have, given it is an ESL class, I have a lot of minority students, so students of color. And one of my students, who was a Black child, asked me where the Black people were when we were talking about people who had been to the moon. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he was like, how come only white people get to go to the moon? And I was like, well, so Black people haven't really been to the moon yet. And instead of seeing the bad racism around that and the fact that there's more opportunities for white people in space exploration, he just said, oh, well, then I will be the first. That will be very exciting. So his plan is to be the first Black person on the moon. And I just felt like I had done my job, because he did not think that this was a bad thing. He only saw his way to change it. And I was like, if that's all you get, if you don't even learn English and that's how you walk away from this class, I have done my job. Because I think that was really great. So it's inspired by him and his dream to be the first Black person on the moon, and kind of set a stepping stone for other people to follow in his path. And this idea that space is for everybody. Everybody wants to go to the moon, just as water is for everyone. It is like a need that everybody has to have the opportunities to be in STEM and in the space program and be able to touch the stars.
Oh, that's amazing how with this artwork you have spoken that kid's dream into existence. There's something real and tangible now.
He is very excited. He is. It doesn't look like him or anything, but I told him that it was going, and he was excited.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you created that? What medium did you use? What techniques? Dave and I are not artists by any stretch.
So I used Procreate and Photoshop. So I did the sketch in Photoshop, and then I sketched in Procreate, and then I took it over to Photoshop and did more of the details. And using some of the generation tools, was able to create what I had in my head.
And so how many pieces of art are going to the moon? You said 10?
I think there's 10, 10 total that they've got going up. Yeah.
So it's the first art gallery on the moon.
Yeah. First art gallery on the moon. I think mine's the only digital art. I'm not 100% sure, but I think mine is actually the first digital art that's going to the moon. A lot of
This is
people
also
did
cool.
like hand painted stuff, which is really cool too.
I feel like whenever we've sent stuff in space in the past, hasn't it been kind of like time capsule or a message to any outer civilizations, not like a gallery for people to enjoy that just have
Yeah.
it out there. That's neat.
It's like seeds of earth. It's things that are more like cultural based, I guess, because it's hard to send culture in the form of a time capsule. So we're sending it as a gallery.
What are they sending anything else like human related that's not
Yeah,
art?
they're sending seeds, so essential seeds if they wanted to plant them somewhere else and grow earth plants. They are sending some human DNA. I don't know which humans have been selected for this, but there's this human DNA going up. I think they're sending music as well.
Somewhere on another planet, they're going to have a movie called Jurassic Park, except instead of dinosaurs, it's going to be humans that they're reanimating after they find them.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I've never known anyone who sent or sending something to the moon before, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
And you seem so as well. Did that get any news coverage or anything? How did that?
I think it got a little bit, like they had people at the event who were covering the event from different news places. But I think once it is actually launched and it gets there, there'll probably be more coverage.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And we're just waiting on the fall then. Man, that seems like that seems like far away.
Okay, my birthday's in the fall. Maybe it'll happen on my birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I ask like everyone about this, but we like to talk about aliens on our show.
Love aliens. I saw the I Want to Believe poster.
Yes, that's my favorite. That's my favorite show of all time.
Me
Have you
too. Me too.
Oh, yay! That's
Mulder and
exciting.
Scully. I've actually met Gillian Anderson.
You've met Gillian Anderson. Wow. Is she Canadian? No.
No.
David Duchovny's Canadian? No, he's not either.
But
how did you meet Gillian? How did you meet Gillian?
She was just doing some fan event, and I lined up and took some pictures with her. And then a few years later, I met her again at TIFF.
So where was the fan event?
It was just in Toronto. It was like a Comic-Con or a fan expo or something like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I almost went to like an X-Files convention, so to speak, in New York a couple of years ago, but I didn't end up making it. But I don't think she would have been there. It was going to be Agent Doggett and Robert Patrick, Agent Doggett, and then one of the other guys.
So cool.
Oh yeah, I love Doggett. Doggett gets a bad rap. And then how did you get into X-Files? That's an older show.
I watched a lot of movies with my dad, like especially like when I was basically bedridden. That's what we did. We sat and watched different things. But yeah, I think he introduced me to the X-Files when I was like 10 or 11. I think I had watched some sort of documentary on aliens and I became like very, very interested. And he's like, oh, well, you might like this. And so he showed it to me. It's a really good show.
It's my favorite.
Have you ever watched the Y-Files, Laura? That's another good show.
The Y-Files? I have not watched the Y-Files.
It's a YouTube show that covers all sorts of interesting nonfiction stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Including aliens, up to and including aliens. So.
It's very well done too, and he does a good job of like telling the story, but then kind of debunking anything that wasn't quite true and stuff like that. But he'll do like, Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and aliens and demons. Fun. And yeah, it's great.
Now, here's a question, and I've wondered about this myself. If they offered you a ride up on that SpaceX rocket,
I'm gone. Yeah, you don't even have to finish the question. Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Stop by the moon to see the art gallery, but then we're going to get back on the plane and keep on going to Mars, right?
Keep going. Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah.
There was an independent company called Mars One trying to send people to the moon. I don't know if you remember that, Laura, or have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of
they're not a company anymore, but I actually did apply and send like a video of me and like talking about why I wanted to go. I never heard back, but I was really banking on that for a minute. Minute. So have you ever seen a UFO or a UAP or anything in the sky that you never?
I have not. I wish I could say that I have, but I haven't. Yeah, it hasn't come yet for me, but I hope they hear me and they come.
Yeah. Well, I supposedly we can communicate with them, according to some people. Certain people on planet Earth can communicate with them and draw them to the planet. Maybe you're one of them. I don't see why you wouldn't be.
I don't know. I do think everybody came from the stars, though. We're all alien in some capacity.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that statement. Carl Sagan says we are made of star stuff, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's the most logical explanation to how we got here.
Panspermia, they call that.
Exactly.
Well, I thought it was a really fun episode of the show. Did you have any other questions, Mike?
Not that I can think of right now. This has been really fun. This has been great.
Yay.
Yeah.
Let's just say thanks, Laura, for coming on the show today. We appreciated getting to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It was a pleasure. And well, looking forward to having you back.
Yeah.